Imagine living thousands of years ago in a world where there were no police officers walking through the streets, no security cameras watching every movement, no fingerprints, no DNA tests, and no modern prisons where criminals disappeared behind walls for decades. If someone committed a crime in your village, there was no advanced system waiting to decide their future. Instead, the entire community became the judge. People gathered together, stories were told, accusations were made, and one question decided everything. What should happen to someone who breaks the rules of society? Today, when we hear the word punishment, we usually imagine a courtroom, lawyers, evidence, and a prison sentence. But for most of human history, justice looked completely different. Ancient humans lived in a world where survival was fragile. A single thief stealing food during a famine could put an entire group in danger. A violent person inside a small tribe could destroy the trust that kept everyone alive. So punishment was not just about making someone pay for their actions. It was about protecting the future of the group. Long before humans built massive cities and powerful kingdoms, our ancestors lived in small tribes where every person had a role. Some hunted, some gathered food, some protected the group, and some cared for children. Cooperation was the reason humans survived, but that also meant anyone who threatened cooperation became a serious problem. And one of the oldest punishments humans created was not torture or execution. It was something that sounds simple today, but thousands of years ago, it could be worse than death: exile. Being removed from the group in the ancient world was terrifying. Today, if someone rejects you, you can move somewhere else, find another community, or survive independently. But for early humans, being alone meant walking into a dangerous wilderness filled with predators, hunger, and uncertainty. Humans were not the strongest animals. We survived because we worked together. Losing your tribe meant losing protection, resources, and your identity. Nature itself became the punishment. But as thousands of years passed, humans changed. We discovered farming, built permanent settlements, and created some of the first civilizations. Suddenly, people were no longer living only with family groups. Thousands of strangers were sharing the same cities. And the bigger these societies became, the more complicated human problems became. There were fights over land, arguments over money, theft, violence, and betrayal. Ancient civilizations realized that traditions were not enough anymore. They needed rules everyone could see and understand. One of the most famous examples came from ancient Babylon, nearly 4,000 years ago, with the Code of Hammurabi. It was one of humanity's earliest major written legal systems, and the idea behind many of its punishments was simple. If you caused harm, you should experience a similar consequence. This created the famous idea of an eye for an eye. To modern people, this can sound extremely harsh, but at the time, it represented something important. Before written laws, revenge could be unlimited. Someone powerful could punish someone weaker however they wanted. Written laws created structure. They told society that even punishment needed rules. But ancient justice had a darker side. It was rarely equal. The punishment you received often depended on who you were. A wealthy person, a powerful person, and an ordinary worker could commit similar crimes, but face very different consequences. Ancient civilizations created laws, but they did not always believe all humans deserve the same treatment. Your place in society could decide your fate. This pattern appeared again and again throughout history, even inside civilizations we still admire today. Ancient Egypt built incredible monuments, created advanced knowledge, and developed one of history's most fascinating cultures. But their idea of crime was connected to something much bigger than simply breaking a rule. Egyptians believed in a concept called ma'at, which represented balance, truth, and order. A crime was not just an attack against another person. It was seen as an attack against the harmony of the world itself. Because of this belief, punishments were meant to restore balance. Criminals could face forced labor, physical punishment, or public humiliation. But one of the most powerful punishments was damage to a person's reputation. In ancient Egypt, your name and your legacy mattered deeply. People believed your actions followed you beyond life itself. Justice was not only something that happened while you were alive, it was connected to how you would be remembered after death. While Egypt connected punishment with spiritual balance, another civilization turned punishment into something everyone could witness. Ancient Rome became one of the most powerful empires in history, famous for its roads, armies, architecture, and engineering. But Rome was also famous for using punishment as a message. Roman leaders understood something about human psychology. Fear can control behavior. Many punishments in Rome happened publicly because they wanted thousands of people to see what happened when someone challenged the rules. It was not only about punishing one criminal, it was about influencing everyone watching. A punishment became a warning, a reminder that the power of the empire was always present. But just like many ancient societies, Roman justice depended heavily on social status. A wealthy citizen might receive a completely different punishment than a poor person or enslaved person. The law existed, but it did not look at everyone the same way. The higher someone stood in society, the more protection they usually had. However, ancient punishments were not always focused on physical pain. Some societies discovered something else that could control people just as effectively: shame. Humans are naturally social creatures. For thousands of years, belonging to a group was necessary for survival. Our ancestors cared deeply about reputation because being rejected by society could destroy their future. Because of this, public humiliation became a common form of punishment. A criminal might be displayed in front of others, marked or forced to carry the reputation of their actions everywhere they went. The goal was not just to make the person suffer in that moment. The goal was to make sure everyone remembered what they had done. In a small community where everyone knew each other, losing respect could follow someone for the rest of their life. But there is something strange about ancient punishment that most people never think about. If ancient civilizations had criminals, why didn't they simply put everyone in prison like we do today? The answer reveals how differently our ancestors viewed justice. For most of history, prisons were not actually the main punishment. Ancient societies did have places to hold criminals, but they were usually temporary. Someone might wait there before a trial or before receiving their actual punishment. Keeping thousands of criminals locked away for years required buildings, guards, and food. To ancient civilizations, that often seemed like a waste of resources. Instead, punishments were usually immediate. Pay for the damage, work for the community, lose your position, leave society, or in extreme cases, lose your life. The idea that someone's punishment should be spending years inside a prison cell became much more common later in human history. And this change happened because humans slowly started asking a different question. For thousands of years, the question was, how do we make criminals suffer for what they have done? But eventually, people began asking, can criminals change? This question transformed justice forever. Philosophers and reformers began questioning whether extreme punishments actually created better societies. They wondered if fear was enough to stop crime, or if humans needed a system that also allowed people to learn, improve, and return to society. Over time, the purpose of punishment began shifting. It moved away from only revenge and toward prevention and rehabilitation. Modern systems are still not perfect, and people around the world still debate what justice should look like. How much punishment is enough? Who deserves another chance? How do we protect innocent people while also allowing humans to change? These questions may feel modern, but they are actually ancient. Every generation before us struggled with the same mystery. Because when we study how ancient humans punished criminals, we are not just studying violence or old laws. We are studying human nature itself. Every civilization creates rules. Every civilization decides what happens when someone breaks those rules. Thousands of years ago, humans used exile, fear, pain, and shame to protect their communities. Today, we use evidence, courts, and legal systems. The methods have changed, but the question behind them remains the same. When someone does something wrong, what does true justice look like? Maybe the way a civilization punishes its criminals does not only reveal how it handles crime, maybe it reveals something much deeper. It reveals what that civilization believes about humanity itself.